basically talking about Cyberpunk, the state of the release, the quality of the game, and it's like me and Meme kind of agreed that the bugs are unacceptable. It's not great, but the Meme has like there's a certain set of conditions like context to CD Projekt Red that you've got to consider and all that, and I was just like we're just going through it, shooting the shit.
Basically, it was a very conversation with it's funny. I said not to bring up Cyberpunk and cause a whole conversation about it, but and here we are.
Yeah.
We got Brandon here too, but he's mostly just a spectator, so
He's
ignore.
he's sleeping on his mat in the corner. I can
Yeah.
throw him a bone every now and again.
Rub one out.
Anyway, yeah. So about I guess we could start like CD Project Red. I guess would be a good starting point because, like you said, that like it's interesting because they're not your typical game developer. They're technically independent, even though, I mean, let's be honest, they put out AAA quality games, like, obviously. But, like, they're not relying on, like, Activision or EA or anybody to, like, peddle them money and, like, basically the means to make these games other than, like, what they have themselves, which, I mean, make no mistake, I'm sure they have tons of funds from The Witcher. So,
Based off that, though, do you think it's fair to hold? Is it fair to hold this company to the same standards as you would to like an Activision or a Treyarch or like a Bethesda?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they got a bit of a cash flow from, Sony and Microsoft to be like, hey, make sure this game arrives on time and all that. So they had some kind of money,
Probably.
funding and all that, sponsors, whatever. The drama is, well, the thing is that CD Projekt Red is one of like the biggest companies in Poland at the moment, like one of the most profitable companies. So I would consider it
Especially
like
after The Witcher 3.
yeah, I would consider it AAA. It's not EA funding level. It's not mega global corp. The RoboCop level of
yeah.
the corporation.
They don't have
Cyberpunk
unlimited
level of
money and whatnot.
yeah, but they're in the AAA area, so I'm gonna like kind of judge them as so. I don't know their funding for the game. I'd have to like look that up, and I'm in the middle of a Warzone game while talking. But yeah,
No
There was one
worries.
thing that I remember Meme brought up, which was if this game had like an actual development cycle,
hmm
it would have probably profited significantly from that, or benefited significantly from that. In terms
yeah,
of if it had like, I kind of feel like the development cycle for this game was just, and I don't know if this was the case, but how it came across was we're gonna do bits whenever we can be bothered to. And obviously that wasn't the case, but like Meme said he hadn't heard about the game for like a 4 year period. The game's been in development for 8 years, yeah?
yeah. It's
Just
been teased
about.
for since 8 years ago. People are saying 5 years. This is the a problem we talked about before. Is how I would like to see more transparency in development cycles from studios, so that they can't hide behind this vagueness of like, oh
How
well, we
much
were
like
actually in pre planning for like 6 years, and then the development was only three. It's like,
how
well,
do you
we
implement
need to
that
know.
without like mass leaks in terms of gameplay and so forth? Is it like
At the end
do
of
you
the
just outline?
on release date on at the end of the development cycle, you could just be like, okay, this is how we did it. Transparency. This is what we spent our time on, our resources on. It's a big. I guess it's a big ask from this standard of industry, but it would be nice to see, especially from a good faith company like CD Projekt Red.
Do you not think that it's like the very idea of having release dates is probably counterintuitive? Because if you think about releasing a game, the main focus of releasing a game shouldn't be let's get the game out for this date. The main focus should be let's get out a functional product that would be like selling a game like Cyberpunk on console where it's just completely broken. It's a mess, and you're selling that game at full price of a AAA game.
Yeah.
It's not. I if you take away the release date, it's like they kind of we spoke about before of they probably weren't able to delay this game any more than they did because of the fact that they said they were going to release it by a particular time, and then they realized, oh shit, there's a lot more problems than we anticipated. Can we push it back again? They did that and received massive backlash from it, and then they can't they can't postpone it again because like I don't know how stocks work. If stocks would plummet, if shares go down, or if the reputation of the company goes down, if the hype for the game goes down, so many like different factors end up negatively affecting the game, where they almost were like backed into a corner where you have to release this unfinished game. If they didn't
Yeah.
have a release, if they didn't have a release date in the first place, they could have released a functional game potentially a year or two down the line.
Yeah, 100%. I think what my opinion of it is like it's twofold, right? Is if you announce a game and you're like, I don't know, let's take a random date, March 21st, Cyberpunk 2077 will be released, and then you're like, well, actually, guys, it's November now, and the November 12th, and then you turn around again and go, actually, December 10th. It's a joke.
December 10th of next year.
Yeah, that's a big joke, because to have such confidence and commitment to such a specific date tells me that you should know where your development cycle is at.
Yeah.
If you
I
go,
think it's a bit like the train got away from them though, because whenever they said we want to release it by this time, that was their first mistake because they didn't know for a fact they were going to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And there were like obviously they can't account for the amount of
COVID.
issues and the magnitude of the issues, and yeah, COVID for example, all these factors they can't take into account. They can't foresee these things that are unforeseeable, obviously.
yeah,
But they set this train on the tracks, like literally just a hype train, where they started to market it a lot more, where it was like it was in the conscious mind of a lot of consumers, and everybody's really anticipating this game. And then you obviously have the fans of the game, like we want this to be the perfect game, the best game ever, and
yeah,
then it isn't that. And there's also a lot of issues where, despite the fact that all these people are anticipating it, and you've already delayed it as well, you then think we kind of have to delay it again, or we give them an unfinished product.
yeah.
I mean,
So
in that situation, you don't have much of a choice, and I feel bad for them to an extent.
well, this is the thing, we're given these like set perfect dates. What it should be is like you announce it the year before, because like I think Meme agrees
I'd
with
say
me on this
you
one.
announce
When
that you're
you
developing the game would
Yeah,
probably be.
I think Meme agrees with me on this one, is when it's like in E3 and then it's like Elder Scrolls coming soon, and it's been like 6 years or what, something crazy long, and it's like still no end day in sight. I think that's a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But like if they were like Cyberpunk come in spring 2020, and then obviously the shit runs away from them, COVID happens. I could talk about the COVID thing, but COVID happens. Let's say it does actually affect their business, their development cycle. Then they can go, okay, here's the letter, the big, the infamous yellow background black text letter
Mhm.
This
with,
game was never in development.
yeah, it was the joke that got too far. They give that letter, and then they don't give the boilerplate like corporate speak. I know they've got PR guys and they've got like a proper business setup, but I really don't like it. Like the boilerplate, just corporate speak of like, hey, unfortunately, guys, due to blah blah blah. They go, okay, this is what's happened. We've these issues run away from us, or some issues have got away, like development wise. COVID's happened. We've got a problem. We're going to delay until spring 2021. I can be happy as Larry with that. It's when you delay to a specific date 3 times in a row. I'm like, your management is shit.
They would have
I-
they would have done it again if they could have though as well.
yeah, like your company's management setup is horrendous. I don't want to be like the guy that's like, oh, the developers were just lazy, just sitting on their asses all day. I don't believe they were,
No.
as some people have claimed, but I think that the management, the way they time preference stuff, and potentially the way they handled their developers, where maybe some developers were just not prioritizing jobs and delivering deadlines on time that they should have been, and they were just like working on something else, and they had like scope creep.
See, could I ask Mim?
Yep.
This is like obviously this is a really difficult question because we're not a part of the industry. We're not a part of like this group that's making the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of
How much-
factors we probably are ignorant on here, but
I'd assume so, but the biggest thing that comes to mind is how much do you think, in the span of an 8-year development cycle, did COVID play in the release of this game, do you think?
so I'd have to see like the specific time frame from like when it actually started to affect the studio. Like they had to like, work from home and whatnot, like the ways that they were doing it. And like but from that, I know as far as game development, the ass end is usually it's weird to say it's usually the most important part, right? Because you're adding that the finalization to the game that like makes it what the game is. Like obviously the beginning's very important. You have to fucking make the game for the ending to get to the polishing stage, obviously. But
Yeah.
the ending is usually, and this is why I was okay with the first delay, because they're like, listen, the game is done. We need to polish it and fix these bugs though, because we have a finished
Polish
game.
the
We
shit.
could release it to you, but it's not looking too good. We need to clean it up. And like,
Yeah.
I'm curious, like I wonder how much of that was affected by COVID, like how much like of that time, like how many employees got laid off, how many employees quit like due to crunch time, because I'm sure if people were getting laid off and people were quitting, the crunch had to have been ungodly, and nobody fucking likes crunch. So it's like, it's hard to say like specifically, because we don't exactly know like how much it affected the studio, but like we do know that they said that the game went gold however long ago, which means it's a final product, but we need to polish it and fix the bugs. So we don't know how much of like the quality assurance was really affected towards the end, which obviously that is what the ending of a game's development life looks like, is mostly just cleaning up any sort of bugs that are left in the game, finalizing like certain like maybe character models or environments that maybe like they left a couple things out that they like were gonna fix with at the end. They had to get the important stuff out of the way and whatnot. So like, kind of like how Alpha was saying, like, oh, if you go to this very specific building on this very specific corner, you can like fall through the map or whatever. Like little things like that, I'm sure they put off until the end, because they're like, okay, we have much more important shit. We need to like get all of our fucking eggs in one basket type situation. So, I don't know how much of a mega impact it had. I'm not going to use COVID as like my main excuse. Like I think there's a lot of excuses as far as like a game launching with the bugs that Cyberpunk has. And like I said, I like to use the PC as the example for what the game is, because I think some of these people who are reviewing the game and giving it low scores because it's buggy, I think that it's warranted to say like, okay, this game doesn't deserve a high score because it launched in an unfinished state, and therefore I cannot give you an accurate score. I have to lower it. I don't know if that's exactly fair. Like, I understand it. I don't know if it's exactly fair though, because you're not judging the game for its merit. You're judging like things that are just kind of broken at the moment, and like
Yeah, but it's kind of like if I give you a painting and it's not a complete painting, and you go, I've paid under the impression that I'm gonna get a full painting, and it's got cracks and chips. You've not finished parts of it.
right. But
And I'm buying this thing with the intention of getting a fully like a perfect painting with no chips, no cracks, and you give me this
absolutely,
thing and it's broken. Like this is the one thing that all of us unanimously agree on
yeah,
is releasing this game in the state that it was released, especially on consoles, is unforgivable, especially for the price that it's released.
yeah. And
You
in my like, well, the point I was kind of getting at like was that's why I use the PC version as like the standard because I'm not gonna like sit here and lie to you that like I like had a perfect game experience, but I'm gonna say like I had a couple visual bugs. I had like one bug that actually like impacted my game where I had to like reload a save, where my car flipped through the fucking stratosphere during like a cutscene or some shit. It was crazy. But other than that, like seriously, like there was that was the one like actual bug. The rest were like like my character's like arms would like not do the animation properly, or a character's mouth wouldn't be moving in a cutscene, or like certain things like that. Like my character wouldn't pick up the geometry of an object properly, stuff like that. Like it was I didn't have an experience, and my experience does not speak for anyone else's experience. I'm just
yeah,
simply
it's
saying
anecdotal.
though that when I look at the PC version of the game, it's definitely more stable, and you can definitely judge the game for what it is, like based off of at least like, and this is just for like this was my point about reviewers, because the game itself should be reviewed for like, you know, the writing, the gameplay, the mechanics, you know, all that good stuff.
But how
It
it's released should play a part as well.
the
Like
release
if
absolutely
it's
plays a part
released,
in it, and that's why I think like when you if you could play it on PC and you can make an accurate judgment based off of like, you know, the way like clearly it was optimized for computers better than it was for consoles. Like I don't think anybody would debate that. It's like, you know, I don't and this isn't like something I like stand by it wholeheartedly. It's just like it's a little thing that I noticed in some reviews. Some reviews they completely ignore the bugs and they're just like, here is the game objectively as far as writing and gameplay and stuff like that, like that I can deter from minus the fucking bugs. Here's what the experience of this game is, what you can expect from this game, especially if you're going to get this game like 3 months from now and they have a hot fix that fixes like 90% of this shit. Like here, because this review will be more accurate 3 months from now, like when people were actually deciding to, you know, oh, so was the game actually good, or like I don't care about the bugs. Like somebody watches the review fucking a year from now, they're like, okay, yeah, definitely had a shitty launch, but like what do these people think of this game though, as far as like writing and gameplay and whatnot? You know what I mean?
see, I'm kind of like through this conversation, I'm kind of realizing that like you guys were kind of you were debating before, and I kind of realized that now you both agree. Like the premise before was Alpha was saying that it's completely unacceptable that it's released having been postponed so many times with this many bugs and issues. And to an extent, I agree because, in principle, and I'm sure Meme agrees as well, they should never have announced a release date in the first place.
No.
They shouldn't have announced a release date until they knew that the game was polished and ready to come out. And I
Yeah,
understand in terms of marketing and stuff, they possibly need to do that.
that's a bit.
But
Yeah, that's
in, ter-
definitely a big factor.
in
So
terms of like releasing a polished game, a functional game, you can announce a release date well before you even know whether or not you're going to be able to get the game out. Like clearly that was in doubt considering the fact they've had to postpone it so many times.
can I ask me what like GTX what GPU were you running and that kind of shit? Like what
Just like
specs?
like my computer stats in general.
Yeah, your
So
specs. So I can get like
unless
a
you're a
gauge.
tech nerd,
You
can you
wanna-
like zone out for the next few seconds, please?
Are you seriously asking me? Are you seriously asking me a question about my computer stats right now? In
I'm
front of all my
imagining like
peers?
you're pushing your glasses up your nose right now.
I'm gonna get fucking judged beyond repair. Like if my computer's not up to the standard of what people think.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a new PC recently as well, so this should be top quality stuff.
You're telling me you don't have dual SLI 380 Ti's, mate? What to do?
How much
No.
did your early Christmas present cost?
Shut up. We're not talking about money here.
Just what card are you running? Just what card?
I got my processor AMD Ryzen 7 3700X 8 core 4.4 gigahertz turbo. Did you just Are you snoring at me?
Oh, sorry. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sorry.
It's
Okay.
It's
so we
really
can give
late, you know.
context.
32,
It's important.
32 gigabytes of RAM. I got at the moment. I have a RTX 2070 in my
Right, so pretty decent rig, like
yeah.
it's up there. So then, the PC guys are like, well, I haven't experienced much issues, but then you run in 2070, 2080. Some guys will run in 2080 Ti cards, and they're still experiencing kind of like almost like Steam early access bugs.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, for it, what I'm gonna consider, like, people still go, oh, indie, but I consider AAA studio with that Witcher 3 money. Still getting that on those specs. I'm like, still, it's not great.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely you won't catch me arguing performance, especially because I know mine's a very specific, experience where I just, like I was talking to Squiddy, he's like, "So what are your thoughts on Cyberpunk so far?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm really fucking enjoying it. I'm glad I haven't experienced any bugs, especially at that point. I literally didn't experience any bugs other than like maybe some frame rate drops, but like I really didn't experience any bugs yet." And that was
Nothing
like a
game
couple.
breaking.
That was like maybe like I don't even know. I'd say like 19 hours in or so. I was like, and I didn't experience anything yet. And like I probably got very lucky. But like also part of that is the fact that I have like a decent computer, so like I'm able to run the shit and not have to experience some of that shit. And like I don't know. It's weird. Like people were trying to play it without the driver update, and it was like they were judging it based off that, and like you have to update your drivers for fucking like every game. Like you can't just like not update your drivers. Like I don't know. I feel like that's weird. Like it's kind of common practice at this point that a big game comes out, and if like Nvidia has like a driver update or whatever, obviously you download it so your game is optimized and whatnot. And like because like I had friends who like have better setups than me that were playing without the fucking driver update, and like they were like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Well, did you download like the day one driver update?" And they're like, "Oh fuck!" And then they downloaded it and they're like, "Oh, this is noticeably different."
I think there was an element of people went into the game having seen a couple of early reviews expecting it to be shit. Where they're like, a lot of people have said there's a lot of issues, so we kind of almost like, it's almost popular to dislike this, considering how it was hyped to be like
Like a
I almost
confirmation
feel
bias.
bad. I almost feel bad saying it was hyped to be the perfect game, but from the outside it came across as like this is going to be the game, like the game to end all games.
I mean, what did
But,
I
like,
say?
Whenever I was,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No. Finish your
Go
point.
ahead.
Finish your point.
No, you finish yours. No.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, I said it in a conversation to you, Alpha, but what did I say? Like when we were talking about it, I'm like, I'm expecting like a halfway decent or competent fucking like RPG, futuristic like RPG, you know. I don't even like know. I guess that's what the game was marketed as, and like a
If you had to rate it, it'd
crime,
probably
like a
be like
GTA type RPG futuristic game or whatever. So like
If you had to rate
I
it, it
had
would
no
probably be like
crazy
an 8 out of 10.
expectations for Cyberpunk. I genuinely did not. And like I said, I even forgot like the game was coming out at one point. I was like, oh yeah, that fucking game that got announced back when I was a child. I remember that. And like, it as it got closer and closer, I'm like, we've been having a lot of shitty games lately. Like I'd love like a competent just RPG to play. And
I mean,
like
Meme was what? Meme was in his 30s whenever this game was first announced.
Alpha, please help me out here.
He's not boomer.
We're bigger, so we're the better fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
We'll edit that part out.
Yeah.
We don't edit shit, Meme.
Yeah.
We ain't edited shit.
Uh,
But for real though, like I don't know, because I know it sounds like excuses or whatever, but like I genuinely think, like, I don't know what the rating I said was like, I gave it like a 75 to like an 85, somewhere in that range. If I had to like and like something like, think of a good example. Like, it's so hard to compare like like an RPG to like a fucking first person shooter or some shit, and like be like, well, this game's like a 90, but this game's like a 70. But like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I think Deus Ex is a really good comparison though, because like, especially like, I don't know if you saw, like, I was talking to Fungus about like the pros and cons to both games, but like, I think honestly, like, I think now, looking back on that conversation I had, I would say that you're probably
that,
getting
sorry?
more bang for your buck with
Your mic cut out. Right.
Oh, my mic cut out.
I'll just
Can you hear me?
try and entertain.
Can you hear me?
I don't think I can.
You don't think you can? What the
Hold
fuck? Josh?
Yep, it's all back now.
Hello? You can hear
It
me?
just cut out for a bit. I can hear you guys.
Okay, I can hear
Hello?
you. Josh isn't speaking, which is alarming. That means he's probably about to get disconnected. Brandon, here, this is your chance, man. Can you hear me?
Nope, we gone. We lost him. Oh no,
Brandon?
we lost Josh.
Oh no.
I cannot.
Oh,
Wait.
wait.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I think it's working.
Josh? Thank you, Brandon. Go back into your cryogenic slumber. All right. Well, Alpha, as long as you can hear me, I guess that's important.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're like, I guess I have to entertain. Time for me to take over the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, like, because like that conversation, it was really, it made me think really hard about it, because I'd never played the Deus Ex games until recently, and like, man, are they fucking good games, and like, they're very similar too. Like, obviously the setting, for example, like, that's, the setting's very similar. The gameplay is like kind of similar. No, Josh, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I can hear him.
I can hear you now.
What the fuck happened?
I have no idea. That was very bizarre.
That was a here. I don't want to get off topic, but like Google and like YouTube and everything just like died today.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I wasn't home to look, but
I was like, I was in the middle of like trying to find, because I moved town and I was trying to find a shop. I was like listening to a podcast on the way down, and then the podcast just wouldn't work, and then maps wouldn't work, and I was like, oh, my
I told you,
world
dude,
is ending.
it's Alex Jones getting his revenge for being cancelled by them.
He's
Dropped
destroying
super
5
male
G
vitality
towers.
in the water, turned the frogs into alpha males, and just took over the headquarters.
Hell yeah.
We're breaking the conditioning. Yeah. So like, obviously we like kind of agree with the state of the game and the quote unquote politics of development behind
I
it. And
think
stuff.
it's really difficult for us to critique it to an extent though, because we're not game developers. Like if we were part of the development team, maybe we would have a completely different perspective on it, because for as much as we want to sit and say it's completely unacceptable how it released, we don't know all of the issues that they came in contact with. We don't know how, like, we don't actually know how big an issue COVID was. For all we know, it could have potentially, like, it could have possibly set the game back maybe a year, maybe 6 months. And quite clearly, even without that, I don't think the game would have been able to have been released in November. When was it initially expected to release? In March?
March, yeah.
When was the initial release? Yeah, so
I think so.
I don't think. I kind of feel like I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe there is issues with the game that they couldn't account for, we don't know about. But I don't think they've came out and told us about them.
I guess my main stance, as far as like the game launching in the state it's in, and us being like overly critical or the perfect amount of critical or not critical at all, whatever it is, I don't agree with the aspect, and I'm not saying anybody here is doing this or anything like that. I've seen this happen though. Like, I don't think there's any malicious intent like behind what CD Projekt Red is doing. I don't think that they
Well, no, they've
like
they've
go
been
ahead.
incredibly good in their practice. They've
Yeah.
been like you said before about they were refunding all of the games that people said they had issues with and so forth. And they're not they're not a shitty company. They're not like I don't want to screw over potential brand deals for Pafe, but you know they're not EA. Like
Hmm.
the,
What- So my contention with it is, let's
is there gonna be
say
loot boxes for penis sizes?
I wish.
my contention with it is like, let's say my boiler goes down, because it has. I have a leak in my house.
Oh no.
It's
Oh, you
destroyed all
poor
my
man.
electrics, right?
Oh,
And
shit.
I ring up the people to fix it. They're the experts. I don't know, right? And then they say, okay, we've looked at the damage, the extent of the damage here, and we've done the job. We've done the number crunches. We've looked at the job. We realized we figured it out, and we reckon we'll get this fixed in 2 weeks. So I've got to move out of my house. I know this is a bit more dire than a video game, but it's just
Yeah,
the you know
Dire.
Taken to
an
the
analog.
extreme.
Yeah, taken to the extreme. It's just like an analog. People will be like, "Oh, dude, Apple and oranges is not the same. It's totally not the same." It's just so you can like get the principle of it.
I got you.
Yeah. And they're like, "Okay, it'll be done in 2 weeks." I move out of my house. I like go back and live with my parents or a friend or something like that for 2 weeks, and then I come back to them like the day before, and they're like, "Yeah, sorry, man. Problems have happened. It's going to be another 2 weeks." And then you're like, oh, well, you know what? There's COVID, there's this, there's that.
See,
I
I'd like to
understand
add in there that
problems
like
happen.
meanwhile, they're like secretly, they're not secretly, but they're going around telling everybody that your new boiler is going to be the best boiler ever.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And they're just hype. They're like, dude, this boiler is gonna be the shit. It will heat your feet and massage your back, right? That kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and then you're like, well, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it for this boiler. And then I come back 2 weeks later, and then they're like, sorry, man, we're gonna have to delay another 4 weeks, like 2 days before again,
And
before
then
the
whenever it
deadline.
finally does come out, whenever you finally do get into your own house,
It's
there's
just like,
issues with it, and also it's not as brilliant as it was
yeah, it's
as
just like,
people
it's just
perceived
like,
it to be.
yeah, it's a pretty competent boiler, and I'm like paying full
But maybe
price
it's
for
not
this.
even competent; it still get issues as well.
Yeah, it still conks out every like. I'm like, oh well, dude, you know, it conks out every like 5 days. It's not that bad.
See, there's two things I'd like to mention in reference to that. First being that if I like, I'm quite a mild-mannered person by nature, so I think I'm probably going to give a lot more leniency than other people would.
Mhm.
And as much as if I'm moving out of my house or if I'm expecting a game to be good and come out on a particular date, if I get told if you move in now, if you get this product now, it'll not be as good as it could be if you give me longer. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
like, right, you know what? I'm willing to take the sacrifice and go, I'm not gonna play it for a little bit longer. I'm gonna do other stuff. I'm gonna focus on other games or focus on school or focus on sports, whatever the case may be. And I can take that absence and go, right, okay, take as long as you need because I don't want you to release a game that isn't of a quality that you're proud of and happy with. I'm pretty sure that whenever this game released, they weren't sitting there going patting themselves.
Dude, they were
on the
probably
back and going,
dreading it.
Yeah, they like. I can guarantee that their developers are sitting there going, they're probably almost more annoyed than us because this is
guarantee
their baby pretty much. And if I had the option and they came to me and said, do you want this to come out tomorrow or do you want us to wait a lot longer? I go, wait a lot longer. But
Mhm.
given the context and given the fact that everybody's expecting to move into their house any day now, and also the fact that they give dates of release, they fuck themselves over.
Yeah.
But also, on top of that, one of the other things I quite like to mention is Meme said that, like, Meme's played it himself, and you said that you had issues with the basic mechanic. In terms of, well, maybe not issues, but in terms of they're not. I think you said they're not AAA game mechanics.
They're like slightly underwhelming. hit or miss. Depends on what it is.
So again, it comes back to the boiler analogy of you're gonna get this incredible boiler that's gonna massage your back and walk around your house and feed your dog, and then you get it and it's literally just a bog standard shitty boiler with issues, and the things that it does well, it doesn't do those things any better than any other boiler. In terms of
Yeah.
gameplay, like, is this game anything that we've not seen before? In terms of like, I guess the branching storylines we've seen
The
that
sheer
before.
scale
to-
alone is definitely its biggest
the skill,
feat.
yeah.
I'll give it
In
like
terms
I'll
of,
give it
like,
that.
But even I suppose the scale is one thing I can give it. In terms of the map itself, I'm pretty sure the GTA 5's map's bigger, is it not? I suppose it has a lot more verticality than the.
It's extremely dense. Like
Yeah,
there's
I think there's a lot of
to it.
verticality, and you can go into a lot of the buildings.
Tons
and-
of elevators and different floors,
Yeah.
hidden rooms, parking garages, and stuff of that nature. Hidden underground bases, and there's a shitload of stuff.
Do you reckon, like, not to excuse it in any way, but do you reckon did they take on a project that isn't capable of being ran currently?
No, I think it's capable of being run. I just think that I don't know. It might, yeah, but maybe they
Because
were a
it's
little
so
bit
big,
over ambitious.
Because it's the magnitude of the map. Like, we talk about density. There, as I understand, you can go into buildings. You can go, like, all of these things are like they're all gonna load simultaneously if you're in a certain proximity, right?
Oh yeah.
So not only is your game trying to load what you're doing in that moment, but it's trying to load the things that you're about to do. It's trying to load not only like horizontal but verticality as well. And because it is so dense, like densely packed, do you not think that maybe they could have done with maybe another generation of console?
I don't know if the generation's necessarily the issue. I think the hardware they have is fine. I just think that they needed to like
Just polish?
yeah, they needed to just like fine tune the optimization mostly. Cuz like it looks again, like a lot of people like to make the meme like where they show Keanu in the fucking CGI trailer compared to in-game. Even that in-game image, when I compare it to what I saw in my game, I'm like, well, Keanu looks brilliant in my game, but like obviously that's not going to be the same for somebody who has a weaker graphics card than me or plays on console. But like, because like I saw those memes and then I'm in game and I see the reflections of, recently rained on street. The street has like is reflecting the car that's driving over it, and the light is shimmering like from the tail light of the car is shimmering off the light, and it's like little things like that, the echoes of the cars driving down the fucking streets like real fast, and there's like a lot of attention to detail as far as like graphically. Like it may not be the most stimulating game to look at like ever created. Like there's
But it's
games that
incredibly
definitely
realistic though.
yeah, there's games that definitely have like better just graphical feats, right? Like, but as far as like the detail in the graphics for like certain things, it's very impressive. Like,
I find that incredibly upsetting though, where they've put so much dedication and effort into like so many minute details, and all of these things have been overshadowed by a per development cycle and a buggy release.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of it's probably how the game's gonna be remembered. I mean, I the general consensus that I've been seeing is that people are like it's an above average game, but it has just a magnitude of bugs that cannot be overlooked. And
Okay,
like,
well,
go ahead.
yeah. No, I'll let you finish your little segment there because I'm gonna kind of veer away a little bit from.
I'm mostly done anyway. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It's probably going to be remembered for being this, like, definitely overhyped game. Like, I don't know what game could have come out and hit the expectations that game was set for. Whether or not people want to blame CD Projekt Red for the way that they marketed the game, or for the fans who are mostly the reason, I would say, for the reason why the game is extremely hyped up to what it's been. I mean, you look at certain games like Half-Life 3, where Gabe Newell is literally has nightmares thinking about releasing the game and it being underwhelming because of how overhyped it was. The most hyped game in video game history, I would say, Half-Life 3 was. So, like, you know, it's hard to say, because, like, marketing is marketing. Every video game's going to have it. Their business. They need to do it. Like, they're not going to not market their shit. But, like, I agree, like, they need to, like, set realistic boundaries with some of the stuff. And I don't know.
So that's actually a great segue in terms of the fan hype.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to talk about. Like, I'm obviously not going to criticize CD Projekt Red. I think maybe their adverts are a bit like, hey, jazz hands, a bit over the top for what they delivered. But the fan hype itself, that's kind of what's, like, caused me to be so bitter about
I think
this
it played a
data
massive
release.
part.
Yeah,
but I don't think that CD Projekt Red are accountable for it in any way, shape, or form. Well,
No,
to an extent,
no.
maybe
Of
with
course
a little bit of the marketing, but like
Definitely their
using the
fault for
train
announcing it
analogy,
early, and thus the hype gets built. But
here's
using
my
the train
contention.
analogy again. I just want to say quickly, it's like it got carried away from CD Projekt Red, where they kind of they portrayed the game as being this, like, I want to say they portrayed it as being this revolutionary game that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And then it's came out and it's not that, and people as well ran away with it and went, "Oh my god, it's going to be even better than that." And you almost get like a Chinese whispers effect where everybody's telling each other, like, "Hey, it's going to be look how great it's going to be," and somebody else takes another aspect and goes, "Yeah, it's going to be even better than that," and then the expectation gets raised to a level where it's just unimaginable, and you can't even. It's impossible to live up to that.
Yeah, but so in that vein, like, so obviously this is the fucking the Reddit fans that just are like, oh my god, Keanu, Big Chungus, Reddit gold me, please. I love this game so much. That just take the game and run it away to unrealistic expectations. But then it's the defending of, like, so the thing that really, like, irked me was CG Projekt Red delayed the game. Then they did it 3 times, and we all know about that. And then it's just the fan reaction to the delay and how they kind of, like, almost like look down at the people who are going, okay, what the fuck is going on? Asking questions, being like, what's going on with the management and stuff. They were just like, you don't understand game development. You're just a pleb. You don't understand what kind of a game they're building here. This is revolutionary. And, like,
there is merit to that argument in terms of we aren't we aren't game developers. We haven't been a part of that development cycle. We don't know what issues they ran into.
Which is why I'm saying they need to be more transparent.
Articulate, and
I would say everyone does, though. I don't know if that just falls onto them.
Yeah, but then it's like the whole, like, the way they just, like, were very, like, pompous about it, and they spam that Shigeru Miyamoto meme where it's like, a delayed game is eventually good, a rushed game is bad forever. And I'm like, well, Razorfist said it best on that one. Like, that's just not how things work. It's especially in this post patch era. And I just want to rub their noses in it, and the whole, like, oh, this, this delayed game does not mean it'll be like, these delays are for polish, man. It's not like when you're saying, oh, there's going to be issues with this game, and they're like,
you have to admit that the delays, like, if we got Cyberpunk in March, it would be significantly
I don't even want to
worse.
know. The console version would just not. It wouldn't read the game.
It wouldn't move.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't turn on.
I get that, but again, with the boiler analogy, let's go back to my boiler analogy. It's like, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And they're like, well, if I delivered it to you when I said I would, it would have flooded your house. So aren't you grateful? It's like, not really.
But with that same analogy, you have to
you
use CD
shouldn't
Projekt Red from their merit with, like, The Witcher, because, like, that, I think that's where a lot of it comes from. It's, from my perspective, at least, that's why I was willing to give them some leeway, because of how much of a masterpiece The Witcher 3 is, which, again, that game launched in a pretty, like, unstable way that like nobody had really seen up until that point. And like the game is just so fucking good, and it's so big, and it's like we've never really seen anything like it. Like we've seen open world games that are similar to it, but nothing of the sheer like scale that The Witcher 3 hits. And that's why I'll mark Witcher 3 as like one of the best games I've ever played, just because of that alone.
Because I would say like at that point, surely like Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red should be like learning from their mistakes and be like, okay, so we're taking on ambitious things here. We need to like steady our heads here, not get rushed up into the clouds with things like that. And
I don't know if I agree with that though, because if you if you think about them as a company, you've created The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
What everybody's going to be looking at is how do you one up that? And this is it's a horrible state to be in. Like,
and it's a drastically different game too.
Did you did you personally ever have the like opinion of how they're gonna one up this? I never really had that myself. Maybe people did, but I never had
maybe
that.
I think
probably
it factored into some people's minds, and I'm pretty sure for them as well, as they don't want to, as a company, they don't want to stagnate. They want to go on to bigger and better things and take on more challenging projects every single project, every single game. They're not going to look at it and go, like, after producing The Witcher 3, they don't want to take a step down. You know?
No.
Like, even if they take a step sideways, that's better than going backwards.
Yeah, I mean,
The Witcher 3 is... Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, people were up in arms that they flat out said, like, well, like, more than, like, it's a ridiculous number, but I don't know the number, but something along the lines of, like, more than 60% of players who bought The Witcher 3 didn't even beat half the game, so we're going to shorten Cyberpunk significantly just so it's more accessible to, like, our fans. And, like, people were pretty fucking pissed about that because they're like, but The Witcher 3, it's so fucking massive. You have to one-up that. It's like, dude, if you one-up The Witcher in size, as far as narrative, too, and characters and stuff like that, like, my God, do you have just the biggest challenge of your life. Like, absolutely insane. It's just crazy, though, to think that, the people who made this game made The Witcher because of how different the games are.
They definitely had to, like... I would argue that this game is significantly more mainstream than what The Witcher 3 was.
Yeah,
and I think that's
sure.
probably, like, whenever Alpha is talking about the fans' portrayal of it, that's probably the reason as to why it's played such a huge part, is because it is so mainstream, where, like, simply by just having Keanu Reeves, you have that entire, like, meme aspect of your game where people are gonna advertise your game through memes. You don't even have to pay for that advertising. And I guess in that regard, people are... Again, you have this train that runs away from you, and so many people jump on the hype train, and I guess maybe the developers to an extent, where they're kind of hoping that... Well, maybe it plays into a little bit of like paranoia, where you're kind of... That adds a lot of pressure. If you think of all of the people expecting this brilliant game, your expectations are getting higher every day that game isn't released. And that makes your job significantly more stressful, added on top any other issues, added on top COVID. Like, it's understandable, not justifiable, but understandable why the game released in the way that it did.
My question to you, Josh, then would be, would you give Fallout 76 the same benefit of the doubt?
And again, this is a tricky one because, like, in my head, I don't want to compare companies when I consider CD Projekt Red to be an indie company. So I don't like the idea of comparing them to the same level as, like, a Bethesda. I'm not entirely sure that that's fair. I know you're talking about in terms of, like, you're gonna say in terms of the revenue and so forth. I don't even know if that's comparable, really. Like, The Witcher 3 is one game, but the amount of backing that Fallout 4 would have had would probably far exceed that of what The Witcher 3 and maybe even, like, I guess the entire Fallout series has probably had a lot more backing than The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, sorry. I guess it's something that you can argue, but ultimately I'm still looking at it from the perspective of they were put in a lot of very difficult positions, and especially for a company that it's not a mainstream company, to have all of these issues as well. I'm a lot more willing to give them the benefit of the doubt than somebody who has previously been able to smash it out of the park. Whenever I look at something like Fallout 4, I'm like, I don't see a reason why is this such a step down from Fallout 3, for example. You look at, you're talking about Witcher 3, you're saying it was a mess on launch. So is it really, in terms of holding them to their own standards, is it really, I guess...
My drummers, according to some people, I didn't really, I can't say for certain, but the bugs and dramas with Witcher 3, maybe you can ascertain to it, it's not as dramatic as the ones that are going on in Cyberpunk, and they were fixed relatively quickly. Fuck knows how quick they'll fix these ones, but does seem to be
I'd assume
a lot.
they're already working on it, I can guarantee.
I imagine pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm worried now that obviously they've released the game in this buggy state and they've made fucking records of cash, and
Yep.
it
Off
might
a broken game.
off a broken game, and they might be incentivized to go the Bethesda route now, if you get what I mean. Like in the sense that like the company is going to become way more corporatized. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, no way, they'll stay the nice small indie developer forever. I think a lot more.
That's part of the reason why I think people want to give them the benefit of the doubt, though. Where you look at somebody like them who've broken into the mainstream, and then what that does is that shows like small indie developers or smaller indie developers that if you make great quality games, this is attainable.
Yeah,
but
I'm worried.
I like
now.
the idea of that in terms of principle, but I get what you're saying in terms of they're almost incentivized now to, well, we can release a broken game and still make shit tons of cash.
Yeah,
and have very few repercussions for it.
They're gonna get a lot more like Phil Spencer type characters, just with the nature of how big their business is going to be getting, with rapid expansion like that, they're going to get a lot of Phil Spencer types in there, and I feel like they're going to be using their reputation and the good faith of the fans, like you guys right now, to take advantage over the next game. This is a big fear I have when you don't, like, even though they're like, oh yeah, but these guys are really nice. I think if you don't hold them accountable to the same standards of other games like a Fallout 76, like a No Man's Sky, things like that.
Yeah,
I think they could start to be like, well, fuck it, they're gonna give us their money anyway. I don't give a fuck.
I don't see a reason why those aren't mutually exclusive though, because we're sitting talking about like.
I think Cyberpunk's a very specific instance too, though.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of. Again, we're talking about things that we don't necessarily know, but I feel like a lot of things have impacted this game's launch, and it's not that it didn't have a set development cycle plan. Like, it's not like a Call of Duty where we're going to release one with Treyarch this year and we're going to release one with Sledgehammer the next. It's not like a Fallout game where they've probably scheduled, we're going to release one game this year, another game this year, and so forth, and they're already working on it years in advance. This game was announced 8 years ago, and to be honest, right, you take something like GTA. If you think about it, GTA 6, sorry, has probably been in development since maybe 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just as long as Cyberpunk. and we've not actually heard about the release yet.
Yeah,
again,
which is
it's,
brilliant. That's what the way it should be going.
And that's the way that it should be going. The reason why I want to give the benefit of the doubt in this case is because I feel like they can learn from it. But I will be I hope that I'll be one of the first people to go if they start to abuse the goodwill of the fans and the people that want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I hope I'm going to be one of the first people to go, yeah, no, you fucked up now, and you need to like reel it back a little bit, because
Well-
that is where we get the EAs of this world, and that's what essentially rots the gaming community from the inside out.
100%, dude. And this is what I'm worried about, like the whole like, oh guys, it's Cyberpunk, and like the lionization, not Cyberpunk. I keep messing it up. CD Projekt Red, guys, it's the Witchers, guys. You know, the Witcher guys. Come on, guys. While they just start to like go the EA route, and this is why I'm like, we need to like
You should
set
be
a
cautious, but
standard
you shouldn't
and hold
expect
it.
them
I
to go
think
that
if
way.
if this happens again, they're certainly going to lose credibility. But there's like a lot of factors, like we've discussed, that play in that make this like a very specific case. Like it being this fucking overhyped game for fucking almost a decade, and it fucking was gonna be put out on one set of consoles, and it didn't go on that console, and then it was gonna go on the next set of consoles, it didn't go on that console, and then it's on the next set of consoles, and it's like them having to change the hardware constantly, and coronavirus, and people getting laid off, and ridiculous crunch times, and disgruntled employees, and there's so much shit that goes into it. And I'm not saying other developers don't suffer from that shit, but like you want to compare it to like Fallout 76, where like that's them just being straight up like fucking dog shit, and like they didn't have to deal with the shit that like CD Projekt Red's dealing with. So like an instance like that is like a little bit different. And like if the next game that they launch, it like launches like this, like for sure I'm gonna be like, all right, well then maybe all those factors weren't a factor with Cyberpunk. Maybe they just really were fucking about. But like I don't know. It's hard to say, especially like when these people could have just easily have sold out to a giant corporation at this point and just been like, fuck it, we'll make fucking billions, and like we don't really like for what, like they just, I don't know. Like I think that they still have the credibility of technically being indie because they're doing it their own way. And I see there's other game developers that are moving that route too, like Bungie for example. You're not gonna catch me fucking praising Destiny 2 or anything like that, but like
I hope Treyarch go as well.
I hope that there's a shit ton of developers I could think of off the top of my head that I'm like, they would be better off without their fucking corporate overlord with their
100%.
thumb down on their neck. And like,
Yeah.
so like we'll see like what the future fucking holds, but like, you know, I just think that it's a very specific case, this one. Like to compare it to games like of previous years that didn't have to deal with the uphill battle that CD Projekt Red's dealing with, it's a little bit more of a specific case than like your typical like, oh well, this game launched shittily, so like it just lump it in with the rest of those. Like I just feel like it's unfair because like there's just definitely more shit that has gone into this than say like your Fallout 76 that was literally a cash grab on the Fallout name for like, oh, what's popular right now? We'll make a fucking shitty fake MMO Fallout game. That'll get them to spend money. Like that game was a cash grab through and through.
If Fallout 76 is a bad example, what if I use like maybe No Man's Sky, which is also an indie project that just fell through, and you know, hey guys, they had flooding, so you can't blame them. Hey guys, they had Corona, so you can't blame them.
Well, fair,
It's
but
those
here's the thing though. Those developers, or not developers, whoever the fuck that guy was, he was straight up malicious. He lied to people flat out. Like, there's no CD Projekt Red lying to people straight to their faces about features in the game that aren't going to be in the game and stuff like that.
Well, you have acts of goodwill from them. You have like they don't come across as a seedy corporation. They could go that way, but as it stands, they don't appear to have any malicious intent. I've not spoken to anybody that thinks they released this game like this on purpose or they lied about features that they were going to have in the game. I honestly feel like the developers for this game wanted it to be incredible, and they are as upset as we are, if not more so, that it hasn't released in the state that they want it to.
And I'm sure they're working fucking relentlessly to fix the shit so
Yeah.
that they don't. Not to say that like you don't think that they're doing
I
that.
don't
I'm just
envy
saying that
them.
I'm sure they're working like day and night to make this go away as fast as possible so that it doesn't get remembered this way. But I think regardless of what they do, it's gonna be remembered as like a buggy mess at launch.
And that was all avoidable by, and I hope that everybody, the gaming industry, learns this from
Dude.
Cyberpunk, is don't give release dates whenever
Halo
your game
Infinite
isn't fully
is
developed.
honestly a really good
It's
example.
indicative of that. If you don't have a release date, you
Dude.
postpone it and you don't give a release date.
And have you seen all the marketing too? Like I kind of feel bad for like these. I shouldn't feel bad for these corporate overlords like fucking Mountain Dew and Doritos and all these people, right? But like I kind of feel bad because they got cheated,
light their
right?
cigars with $50 bills.
They're like, oh, yeah. By the way, we're not putting out Halo Infinite, so you pay like we'll do your advertisements, but that game ain't coming out. I'm sorry, dude. Like, and they launched the Series X with Master Chief's face on it and shit, and like. Dude, yeah, it would have been absolutely insane if Halo Infinite launched with the console. It would have did so many favors for Xbox, but I'm so fucking happy with the direction that Microsoft has been going lately. And think about where Microsoft was and think about where they're at now. They're literally like, all right, sure, you don't have to launch Halo, the flagship series of the Xbox, with the new Xbox. We'll let you guys have an entire fucking year if you want it. Go ahead. Like, that's kind of crazy to think that that's where they're at this point.
I don't know a single person, if they had to choose between Halo today and Halo Polished, would choose Halo today.
And that's
you can
always
have the game in a year's time significantly better.
Always been my point too, where it's just, dude, I don't care how fucking long I have to wait. Don't give me an unrealistic release date, but like if you're telling me you have to delay so like I was not mad when Red Dead got delayed. I wasn't mad when Game of Thrones got delayed. However, you know, we saw how that went. But like people were flipping out that Game of Thrones got delayed, and I was like,
was the book delayed as well?
Yeah. But George R.R. Martin's too busy writing Elden Ring that we'll never hear anything about apparently. But
so
yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, a big thing I'm trying to say is like with this delay thing, how people put so much stock in delays and how it's like it's not always a guarantee, guys.
No, it's not. But I think in instances like this,
well, it's a guarantee that the game will be improved.
I think it's definitely it definitely was improved through the like I can't imagine that they did these delays and nothing changed.
Like again, if we go back to had Cyberpunk released in March, holy shit.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's gonna be like nothing will be done, but like people are like, you know, delayed game is a polished game. It's like, well, no.
Not necessarily, but I do see the argument in terms of it will be more polished. Unless you delay the game and you sit in your arse, scratch your arse, and do fuck all, the game will be improved between March and November. Or March and December. It's like just by the fact that they will be working on it behind the scenes. Just because a game is delayed doesn't mean that it will be like a perfect game or a polished game, but it will definitely be better. But also on top of that, if a game comes out on release, there's no reason why, assuming the point should be, if you announce a release date, there's no reason why the game shouldn't be coming out polished and perfect, maybe not perfect, but close to it, on that release date.
Yes.
Because you shouldn't be announcing a release date in the first place until you know you'll be able to release it on that date. That's the point of a release date. Whereas now it's became, yeah, we'll say this date, and then we'll probably postpone it because of unforeseeable issues, which I can understand. But the the point should be, if you obviously there's going to be unforeseeable issues, so why don't you wait as close as you possibly can? Maybe start doing advertising, but don't announce a release date. And then once you know, right, unless an apocalypse happens, this game should be fine to come out on this date. Then you announce the date.
Yeah,
that makes so much more sense, and you're not going to have any of the issues that Cyberpunk had, and that's the thing that we should be taking away from this whole saga.
Yeah, I can gladly agree on that little.
Did you almost say concede?
No.
No.
I don't concede.
No. Fuck you guys. I'm
Fuck
rage
you.
quit.
Rage quit.
Um.
I really enjoyed that wee discussion.
Yeah, it was nice. It was pleasant. Nice little
Should do more of those.
nice little hour of. Brandon, how was it? You listened to the whole thing, right? You got to hear it before
I
anybody.
did. I was here as a soundboard. I would
Yeah,
have chimed in
our
if I thought
producer.
something didn't sound good.
He's our producer / GMA.
Yeah, he's he's running.
Hey, Jamie,
things
can you
behind the
pull that
scenes.
up?
Yeah, pull that up for me.
Oh, I should have used you as that. Like, what's the budget of Cyberpunk?
Yeah.
Hey, do that now. So you've done something.
It's yeah.
No, don't tell him. It's his job.
Uh...
Wow, Jamie, you're fast.
This guy's good.
Fucking shitty answer. Thanks.
A lot of money.
It didn't give me the budget. I looked up what's the Cyberpunk budget. It said you can buy Cyberpunk for $60.
Oh my
Thanks.
God.
That's not what I wanted.
What is your budget for buying Cyberpunk?
Yo, can we actually hire you, Brandon, to be our
314 million.
GMA?
314 million.
What? So what's like comparatively?
not-
What would be the budget? Do you want to pull up the budget of Fallout 4, just so I can get like a rough idea? Of
Pull up
them
the budget
compared?
of Avengers Endgame.
Oh, Christ.
Pull up the budget of
Yeah, well,
FIFA
movies
21.
and video games are crazy different, though.
356 million. So
For
for Endgame. So it's
what
not.
was the what was unironically what is the
314.
budget? Go ahead.
It was 314 for Cyberpunk and then 356 for Avengers Endgame.
What was it for was it Fallout 4?
Yeah, because like video games rake in just an ungodly amount of money to the likes of which movies will never see, like ever.
Just wait until movies can somehow get you to have like loot box mechanics.
It doesn't give a direct number for Fallout 4, but between 100 and 120 million.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Interesting.
so I guess it is like comparatively. I think it's fair. Like if you want to hold them, if you want to hold CD Projekt Red to the standard of a AAA developer, as much as I'm like, this is like an enigma of a game in terms of how it's released and all of the circumstances around its release. There's never been like, apart from like the Spanish flu, there's hardly been anything like COVID before, and there's probably been many issues throughout the development cycle regardless. But I definitely do think there's a lot of integrity in holding them to the standards of
Triple
but
A's.
Yeah, think of how
AAA
many
game
developers. I knew
shitty
it, dude.
tactics
They
they
have that-
could have done that all these big like corporations do with their other other games like that.
Mhm.
That they could have just
they
easily
could've-
done, and they just chose not to because they're trying to uphold their reputation in a sense.
Because of how they've acted, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and try and not justify it, because I still stand by the fact that the state in which this game has released on consoles is completely unjustifiable. Like it should never, especially at the price. It shouldn't have touched
No.
the shelves. And
Not at all.
I guess the only way to mitigate that is just make sure you're able to release it on the date. Like there's nothing else to it, I guess.
I think people need to stop trying to release like when there's a new generation. Dude, fucking 86, the last generation. Fuck it, like just like I'm sorry. I know that isolates a lot of people who can't maybe afford new consoles and stuff, but like, dude, everyone else is gonna suffer from it. Like, like I always use Black Ops 3 as an example just because of how funny Black Ops 3 is on 360. It's like the funniest
Yeah.
game ever. It's so
I
silly.
thought that was Black Ops 2. What was Transit had to be way shittier because of the previous.
Oh, this is
No,
a
it
completely
was-
different discussion.
it was Black Ops 3. it won't be a whole discussion or anything, but they like with fucking the funniest thing is like obviously zombies is what I cite with it, and like it got to the point where they stopped releasing maps for it because they're like, okay, we can't do this anymore. Like this is torture, and like even to the point where like they released Zetsubo no Shima, but there was no Easter egg because it was like too much for the fucking 360's hardware to like handle. So like they're just like,
do
all
the
right.
cutscenes.
Yeah, so the cutscenes are just the funniest fucking it's like somebody remade the cutscenes in like Gmod or some shit. It's so
Have you
funny.
seen like I think I've seen like clips of it where
Dude.
like certain characters
Oh
are
my
like T-pose
God.
and stuff.
It's the models look so funny. Oh my God. They look like fucking N64 character models, dude. It's so funny. But like I use that as an example because it's like, dude, like stop using the manpower to make it for this. I know you like have to meet these quotas and stuff. I'm sure they like had I'm sure they were obligated to do it like that contractually in some regard. I'm sure they had to, but like
Probably.
I just wish I would be curious to see how much better the game would be without that, because that is a huge factor, and they said it themselves that was a big factor. That like, I mean, they flat out came out and said like, listen, it ain't looking good for these last gen consoles. We're trying our best, but I don't know. Like, just give us some time, I guess. And like, I was having that conversation with Spacey like back before, like a couple months before it came out, and I was like, man, they just need to stop the last gen. Like, just don't do it. Like, if it's really affecting it that much, it's not worth it, man. I feel bad to say that. Like, it makes me sound like this asshole who like it's like, oh well, I can't afford the new console. It's like, I totally sympathize with that, but like, should we all have to suffer because you can't afford a new console? Like, I don't know if that's fair. At the very least, like, I don't know.
I think it is definitely taking advantage of the market though, because if you like, I remember a while ago, I used to be quite into FIFA, and me and my friends would always play FIFA, and we were all massive into into the 360. And there came a point, I think it's FIFA 16 or 17, where they said we're no longer releasing FIFA on the 360. Because what had happened before was they would release it on the 360 and the Xbox One for 15 and 16. And then for 17, they said they're not going to do that. We were all like, shit. Now, if we want to continue playing FIFA, we have to get the new console. And it's not a nice position to be in, especially like, I know a lot of my friends physically couldn't afford it. And it's like, as much as you're saying, why should the rest of the gaming community be deprived because certain people can't afford it? I don't think it's great practice to almost force the entire community to change the console because, like, I guess it's the discussion around consoles as well. And
Kind of.
it goes into the whole, like, PC console discussion.
Kind of, sort of.
I do understand that at some point you can't release, like, you're not going to be able to release, like, Cyberpunk on the 360.
Like, I don't wholeheartedly like stand by my statement. It's more like I'm more or less just trying to say like, listen, at the very least, like, yeah, it's pretty it is a nightmare on the last gen consoles, but at the very least they offer you the free upgrade. So it's like, okay, yeah, you spent $60 on this game. You shouldn't have had to have spent $60 on this game. This game is not worth $60 in the state that it's in. However, like, I'm saying, like, oh, we'll just, completely get rid of it. At the very least, they offer you a free fucking upgrade if you do get the next console, which you have to imagine a lot of people are going to get the next consoles for, like, Christmas and stuff. I would be curious. See, it's a hard thing to judge because it happens once every fucking, what, like 8 years or so? I don't know
especially
the cycles of consoles
I'd
anymore, but it's
probably
interesting.
argue that even back in like the Xbox 360 released in 2005, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I think in the 15-year sense, I think gaming's became a lot more mainstream as well. So surely the ceilings should be a lot higher than what they were back then.
Oh yeah, I mean that ceiling will continue to grow for sure, especially when you have like games like fucking Fortnite and shit that's accessible to everyone and it's free and
Yeah.
Not to
shit like
jump in
that.
and interrupt here, but I have to dip out.
It's all right.
Yeah, no,
That's all right,
You
Jamie.
did a great job, Jamie.
Thanks.
Thanks.
We'll definitely have you on the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be around to look things up and sit in the corner.
All right.
All right. Nice talking to you guys. See you
Nice
later.
talking to
Wait,
you.
wait. Do you want to stay and we'll wrap it up here?
Oh, I'm down. If he is he gone already? Oh,
It depends. I have to join another call, so it's up to.
We'll wrap it up here. Is that so fair,
that's
Jamie?
fair with me.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
let's do it.
Right. Well. Yeah. Yeah. I guess.
It was it's an interesting conversation. I think there's like I don't rule out either side of it, but like I feel like I have to be fair at the end of the day. Like there's just certain aspects of it that I can't just brush under the rug as X. I have to like look at it from every aspect and give it fair merit. That's basically my stance on it.
And I think
I
this,
get your standpoint.
This style of content, I think we're probably going to try and look into doing a lot more of. We've already signed Jimmy up on a 3-week contract.
He's so cute, dude.
Well, in 2 weeks I'll have a better computer and I can look things up at 3 times
that
the speed.
picture of
So.
a chimp, Jamie.
Pull up that video of that deer getting hit by a truck. Well, Alpha, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a good talk.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Josh.
Not a pleasure with me, though.
Well, I was getting there.
And
I love you too, man.
All right.
I love you, random citizen.
There it is. Have a nice evening, morning, day, afternoon.
Currently, it's morning.
Well,
enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.
Subscribe, guy.